Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's all about other podcasts, where each week we dive deep into a podcast and we talk about it book club style. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to recommend a new episode for you guys to listen to, and we'll talk about that one next week. I'm Kirk.
And I am Zach. And this week we are talking about Broken Record, hosted by Rick Rubin, Malcolm Gladwell, Bruce Headlam, or Justin Richmond. It seems like it's kind of people take different interviews and they all kind of bounce around. And this podcast is just digging in with some of the most famous musicians that you can imagine for a music interview podcast.
It was kind of nuts.
Impressive. And it kind of, I actually got this discovery from Mark Etherington, who's also known as Mountain Hauler. He's a musician that we've had on the show a couple times and featured his music. And he told me that he listened to this podcast, and I believe he listened to the one about Rick Rubin, because if you don't know him, he's a very famous producer. And so he has a lot of stories about his direct influence on some pretty significant parts of music history. And so he said, you got to check this podcast out. He actually listed 4 different episodes that I should check out. And James Taylor wasn't even one of them. So really, this is one of those shows that you can just go look through the catalog, find somebody you like, and check it out. But this specific episode is Malcolm Gladwell, famous from Outliers.
I'm a big fan of
from
him.
Revisionist History is another amazing show.
So good.
Really one of those shows like This American Life where there's not really bad episodes of it. Mm-mm. You just kind of enjoy it every single time.
It's one of those shows where if you look at a title, you're like, I don't care about this. And then you listen to it and you're like, I care about this now.
Yeah. It's like, I didn't.
I remember there was one, it was all about golf courses. And I'm like, I don't like, and it was all about disenfranchising people because of golf courses and things like that. Okay. Taking over parks because of, rich people being able to go to these golf courses. And it was nuts. I was just enthralled by it. I've always been a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell. The reason I like it is he's very thoughtful.
Definitely.
You may not agree with everything he says, but you can tell no matter what opinion he has that he's thought about it a lot.
Yeah, he's not just winging it.
It's not just, hey, I'm going to give you my opinion or whatever. And also, as you can see in this episode, he's a very good interviewer. So, yeah.
I think the thoughtfulness plays into that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think that you get to kind of take a look at how he thinks, because he asked questions of James Taylor that kind of show kind of the direction and the things he thought were interesting about his life. So yeah, this episode is just James Taylor breaking down his life, his struggles, and he's been very vocal about his time in mental institutions. It's kind of a weird thing. I first really got into James Taylor in college because I took I think it was a lit class, but it was all focused around literature about mental health. So Girl Interrupted, Sylvia Plath. There was a lot of Zelda Fitzgerald. So F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife writing about his relationship with his wife. And that was basically the premises. I think it was called the crack up. So it was people who had a mental break. And so one day before class, she played James Taylor. And she told this story about how he spent a lot of time not a lot of time, but he spent time in
8 months. That's a long time, though.
Yeah, it is a long time.
That's a long time to be in a situation like that. He was institutionalized, and it was not in a nice one.
Yeah, no, and he also then went on to become so famous and successful and level out. So it was a success story, and I think that was part of why she was highlighting it. But that was kind of my first look into appreciating James Taylor as kind of that struggle, where he had, it wasn't like a picture perfect life, and he had things that he was overcoming as he was writing just really touching music to me, something that just, it was very heartfelt. It always felt genuine when he would sing.
Yeah.
And so they start digging into that. They dig into his childhood, and he talks about his
the curse, his family curse, essentially.
That's kind of a powerful thing, because and this is another thing that James Taylor's also a thoughtful guy. He really digs into this stuff. And they talk multiple times in this episode that he has an audio memoir out where exactly, and one of the coolest things about this episode is he's clearly holding his guitar throughout this episode.
And a piano. Like I put down.
He's not holding the piano, but he's near one.
Yeah. So I put down, I'm like, he's got a guitar this whole time. And then later on he breaks out the piano. I'm like, and a piano, I guess.
So they must be in his studio or they're somewhere he's comfortable and he just has a guitar and will straight up just start playing licks.
Yeah.
Based off like stream of consciousness. If something pops into his head like, oh, you're talking about this song, he'll start playing it. And so it really makes an awesome interview to have him just start randomly playing throughout it. Including he would like play like Beatles riffs and he'd do whatever. He would just kind of play whatever they were talking about. But his voice is still incredible because of the style of singing he was doing. It was kind of like soft, like singer-songwriter, not anything that was going to wear his voice out. And so it just sounds like it has more character now. But he's a very thoughtful guy, and Malcolm Gladwell is a great interviewer. And so they kind of go down this whole path of how he got started. And he got started at 18 playing hotels and bars and things like that. And one of the things he noticed was he remembered a song that he wrote when he was at that like hotel he would play at night, the Night Owl, that he was playing 6 nights a week. He still remembered his song that he wrote then. And he talked about how when stuff comes with music, it helps you like remember it. Yeah,
that's definitely true. I mean, it's silly, but I was listening to music today that I remember listening to when we were in high school, and it just took me back to a much simpler time before things got crazy and before the world seemed like it was upside down.
Yeah.
And, the world was my oyster, and it was
it was also before we were adults.
Yeah,
like,
it was before we were adults.
Now is the extreme of that. But like before this, you had like responsibility. Like you have things to pay, you have things to do.
But it's amazing how a song can take you back to that time. It's like the closest to time travel other than like a scent that we have. And it's amazing. It's amazing how much of a memory we can tie to a song, even if we don't realize it a lot of times. You don't realize it at the time, but then when you hear it later on, you're like, oh no, this is a song that meant something at this point in time, and you go back to that time.
Absolutely. And I think that he was kind of transported there. And this definitely made me want to listen to his audiobook that he's put together, because I wonder if he kind of stream of consciousness. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, it was on Audible.
That's what I was going to say earlier, is like, I wonder if it's kind of that same thing where he'll throw in songs that kind of like are that soundtrack to that moment that he's talking about. Because it seems like he is really tied to those things, and he does like understand that and realize that it's something that's powerful to remember the song and that moment.
Yeah. So he talks about his past and his grandfather and just this tragic story and how his father ended up being an alcoholic, and it's kind of it went in the family. Addiction was in the family.
Yeah,
from the beginning.
Calling it the Taylor curse, it gives it a lot of weight because it means it's something that's like following you and is coming for you. Something you have to escape.
Yeah, I mean, and he didn't get it passed over either. Escape. So it was a great interview. I'll be honest, I came in knowing the only thing I knew about James Taylor is that he was extremely influential to almost any like musician today. He influenced so many musicians.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's like, okay, it's like the Beatles, they've influenced so many things, but I don't know a lot about them, but I know who they've influenced. And I felt like that with James Taylor. But I loved having more of a backstory to this guy. And I look forward to actually digging into some of his old music, because he has a lot of music.
He has a lot of music. He's been playing for a long time, since he was 19. He's easily, 60, 70?
I don't know.
He was 18 in the 60s.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So, yeah, it's incredible kind of the catalog he's put together. And speaking of the Beatles, that's one of the mind-blowing parts of this. I did not realize he was signed by 2 of the Beatles. So after his first stint in a mental facility, he, I guess, just was like, I need to get out of this area. Went to England.
Yeah, so before that, he talked about his addiction.
Yeah.
Because apparently, he was trying to make it. Where was he?
He was in New York, I think.
Yeah, I thought he was in New York. I didn't want to say it if it was wrong. But yeah, I think he was in New York, and he'd always had this strained relationship with his father. But
yes,
things were going,
I did want to mention this part too.
Things were going very bad. And I mean, he had hit rock bottom basically. And he said, I was addicted to heroin. And he goes, and I knew that it was going to get me in trouble. like, I was having some real issues. And I just called my dad one day and he's like, how you doing, son? And he's like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And he's like, where are you at? And he told him where he was at. He's like, I'm coming to pick you up. And he's like, that was one of the few times that, his dad went out of his way to, and I'm sure that influenced him a lot.
Yeah, but came through in the clutch. People have just so much nuance to.
And I'm sure it had a lot to do with his dad's like, I've been there. Yeah. I've been addicted to something. I've been a slave to a substance.
Or even have bottomed out and been alone. And I can be the aid there.
He's probably like, I can't be there for you most places, but I've been where you're at right now, and I can be there for this place.
Yeah, and literally that moment, and Malcolm Gladwell picked up on this immediately. Like because if you know anything about the book Outliers, he's very in tune with individual moments shaping an entire path. And so he saw exactly what was probably accurate. Like these moments with your dad, like even your challenging upbringing, you could see the outliers thinking throughout this interview. Your upbringing pushed you kind of this direction where you had to express, you had to find a way to talk about it. And he gets him to talk about his process in a really cool way. He gets him to essentially just open up about what the music actually means as he's creating it.
But then he talks about going to the UK, and then I didn't want to cut you off, but I kind of wanted to go a little bit chronological.
I didn't know the chronology on that one because I wanted to mention that too because it's a powerful moment with somebody who he clearly had a strained relationship with his father his entire life. I think even after, and just
he even talked about being an influence to a lot of the songs that he wrote. You know, a strained relationship with your father. Yeah,
but there was one moment that literally might have saved his life.
I thought about that a lot.
That was the one that, I don't know.
Like, what would have happened to James Taylor? What would have happened to music if his dad never would have went there?
Yeah, an entire generation of singer-songwriters wouldn't have had James Taylor as an influence. It's
like a ripple effect. It's like the butterfly effect. This one guy has influenced so many people. If he didn't exist, would they have been... Taylor Swift wouldn't be around.
I mean, I guarantee Taylor Swift is influenced by James Taylor.
Yeah, she was named after James Taylor. That's what.
Yeah, I'm just saying her style as well too.
But I'm just saying it was a joke because they mentioned that, and I actually put a note down Taylor Swift.
I'm named after James Taylor too. I'm not. I'm named after my grandpa Taylor. But it also makes me think of, it's later in the interview, but it's something that kind of fits. Is he talks about. Malcolm Gladwell literally asked him, like, so you've had a very, charmed life because of this next story I'm going to tell and the kind of how it all works out. And he's like, I have. Even though sometimes I look at it and, I see the negative, I've been fortunate, Yeah,
at first, Malcolm kind of hedges because he kind of says, even though you've had a lot of difficulties, you've, in some ways, had a charmed life. And he comes back, he's like, no, I have had a charmed life. And I loved that.
Yeah.
There was something about that realization of, no, I had a lot of lucky breaks.
He's a very genuine guy.
And I appreciate that.
And the luckiest of all lucky breaks is when he goes to the UK. And he knew a guy that dated Paul McCartney's boyfriend, or there was a whole thing, you know what I mean? It was one of those 17 degrees of separation. And he goes to the UK and he's like, hey, do you still have that number for these guys? And I was like, yeah, I have a number. I don't know if it's going to work. It did work. And James Taylor, at the age of 19, performed Something in the Way She Moves in front of Paul McCartney and George Harrison at their studio, Apple Records,
which apparently was not even around for more than a year.
No, I mean, did you hear? Because here's the cool thing: is I didn't realize that he was so close to the Beatles. He talked about John and Yoko blowing up the Beatles, because of that producer that got on board, and that's why Apple went down. Because the Beatles were superstars, like we've never seen before, after. Just and still to this day, just absolute. If they went on tour right now, people would pack out stadiums.
Oh yeah.
So he talks a lot about his kind of interactions there. I had no idea he lived right next to John Lennon when he was assassinated.
Yeah, that was a whole thing that I was like, wait, this has this is a random story, but it's nuts.
All of this really makes me want to listen to his audiobook.
I mean, he literally bumped into the guy that ended up killing him.
And he was dating Joni Mitchell and Carly Simon at random times. So like he was dating two other singer-songwriter, pretty amazing. Like Carly Simon is incredible. Joni Mitchell, I never got as deep into like her music, but he also dated other amazing singer-songwriters. So and they were writing music together and like just collaborating on stuff. And he was just around in that time of like that change in music. And that was another thing that he mentioned just kind of offhand that I wish you would dug into. Is he talks about kind of the vibe in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know, or like the 60s, 70s, where it was like everybody was changing everything. And I don't know. I'd love to just hear him just go on about what it was like to be alive in that time. Because he was definitely singing that type of music that wasn't.
And he kind of vaguely mentioned how like for one of the first times in history, black performers and white performers were kind of performing at the same time and together, and how that was a little bit influential as well. And I thought that was interesting. That's something that I would like to hear more about as well.
Yeah,
because I mean we've talked about multiple episodes of different things of the black influence on music and how much of an influence there has been, and that was an interesting.
And it took
thing.
until the 60s for it to be like constantly like just playing at the same time, you know. So, but it's incredible to hear somebody who was around for these historic moments in music, and you don't associate him with it. But it's not that he's not famous; he is. James Taylor is a legend in music, but I just had never put some of these pieces together that Malcolm Gladwell was able to like draw out throughout the course of this interview.
And I love how he's like, I think my best music that I've ever written is in the last 5 albums.
Once again, that made me want to listen to his most recent albums. Because singer-songwriter, folky stuff, it doesn't really get bad as they get older. It's like Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash on his last stuff, like I feel like maybe his most popular song right now is Hurt. Mm-hmm. You know, that wasn't his like one that made him all his money and got him famous. That was right now when his voice was like breaking down and it sounded just like gravel, and it was
it sounded real.
It was a 9 Inch Nails song.
Yeah, it was a cover. And I remember what 9 Inch Nails said,
Trent Reznor.
This is not our song anymore.
Yeah, he gave it away. Yeah, he's like, no, it's no longer ours.
It's almost like one of those things like we wrote this song preemptively for Johnny Cash.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, if you haven't
if
you haven't heard Hurt by Johnny Cash, he wrote it after losing his wife, and you should go listen to Hurt. Or he didn't write it, he covered it. And you should go listen to it because it's the realest and it's incredible.
It hurts.
Yeah, it really does. And so it's just cool to hear how his music has progressed. And so I'd love to check out his new stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love his old stuff. Mm-hmm. I really do. That's one of my records that I've had to like step back from because I'm like burning a hole through it, you know, type thing. It's like I listen to it too much.
It's your vinyl collection?
Yeah, Sweet Baby James is definitely, I have that on vinyl because it's amazing. And also I will put in the show notes, there is an incredible, like, one of the great things about the internet is that archival music performances are being restored and put on the internet. So there is 2 right offhand. I gotta put them out there. Bill Withers just passed away. R.I.P. to an absolute legend. Like that one hurt me a little bit because Bill Withers means a lot to me, and like he's amazing. So I'm gonna put both these in the show notes, even though they aren't related. Well, James Taylor is. James Taylor and Bill Withers performed in the at BBC in like the 70s, and they re-uploaded this footage. And it looks amazing. It sounds amazing. And you can just watch it on YouTube now. And who knows how long it was just not available. Yeah. 30 years.
There is a beauty in that on the internet. That you're able to watch things and see things that, I mean, heck, this is real stupid. I'm going to bring it down, guys, to a real dumb level. So there's all these rides at Disney. Oh man. Yeah. So there's all these rides at Disney that I don't remember or that I didn't get to ride, but all these people have home videos that they, made of these rides. So you can go on YouTube and you can ride it on YouTube.
Okay. I'm going to make fun of you a little bit, but I also,
I opened myself up for
I
this
also
one.
am curious. They literally have you watched these?
Yes.
Okay, that's the making fun of you part. The second part is how like high quality is this, or were you just curious? Okay.
Well, I say horrible. For that time, it's really good quality, but it's just cameras.
Yeah,
are
comparatively.
So much better.
Yeah, phone cameras are better than something you could spend $50,000 on in the
Yeah.
80s. Especially because I switched to like using the VHS tapes, and that was when it went downhill. But yeah, so
And James Taylor is such a prolific songwriter. I had no clue. He said he's written almost like that are out. Not just like I've written and never recorded. He's written and they're out like around 200 songs.
Yeah.
That is nuts. That is
And
so many
they're
songs.
amazing because honestly, as soon as he said they played Something in the Way She Moves for the Beatles, that is maybe my favorite James Taylor song. There's like something about it because it's not like your traditional love song. It kind of is, but like it's different. It's not shiny. It's more like real stuff. I don't know. It's a great song, but he has a lot of great songs, and he is one of the main things I really love about him is he is an incredible guitarist, but it's acoustic. And it's his style, but it's acoustic, kind of like finger picking style, but it sounds so good, and he's really talented. If you try and play any of the songs, you will find that out quickly. But he just always had that genuine kind of expression to it. And when you listen to him talking, it's still the same. He's completely just open with how he was feeling about things and really wanting to dig into this stuff with him.
I don't know. It was a great interview, a great show. There's so many, like you talked about, there's so many other artists that they've talked to and interviewed on this show.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm going to throw out a couple of these because it is a really great show.
It started playing the next one, and it was Run the Jewels. It's just, how different
First of
can
all,
you get
please,
from James
please
Taylor?
listen to Run the Jewels. Those two are hilarious. Like, they just are hilarious. But you can listen to one that's just about Rick Rubin. So they essentially, Malcolm Gladwell interviews Rick Rubin, so you get an idea of what he's been up to. Tom Petty creating the album Wildflowers. Questlove, 2 episodes. So Questlove from The Roots. You have Pentatonics. That's the a cappella 5-piece.
My daughter loves them.
And I'm trying to just kind of throw out a wide spread. Jack White, Tyler the Creator, Wyclef Jean, Brandy Carlisle, Black Keys,
I like the
Nora
Black Keys a lot.
Jones, Flea, bassist for Red Hot Chili Peppers, Bon Iver. It's just so many. John Legend, Nathaniel Rateliff, Alicia Keys, I think is their most recent album or most recent one. There's just a lot. There's a lot of different types of music you can get into. There's somebody you're going to like, and all of these people that are involved in the production of the show are incredible interviewers, and they're really interested in kind of the background behind some of their favorite music, and it really makes a great show.
It really does.
So this is a fantastic show. If you're a fan of music in general, you can find some one of these topics, some artist on here that you want to dig in with, and they will find out some really interesting backstory to your favorite artist's life and to their music. So definitely go check out Broken Record and see if you can find an episode that piques your interest, because it's really, really great.
Oh, yeah, it really is. Speaking of something that's really, really great,
Us.
PDS swag. Y'all want some PDS swag? Like this t-shirt right here? Why don't you show them, Zach?
Okay, sure.
Those that are watching the live stream. By the way, we've been live streaming these recordings. You can actually watch this before
Right there.
we're ever released. But if you want a t-shirt, a nice Bella Canvas t-shirt with the PDS logo on it, which our friend Phil Snyder, the tattoo artist, drew for us by hand. By the way, it's just such a nice...
And then our other buddy at Richie from Brands and Empires, who's been on the show a couple times, helped us tweak everything, get the shirt put together. And I feel like this is not a trick. We will send you a shirt. We will.
And we also have some stickers left over from when we went to Podcast Movement.
Yeah.
So the first few people will get some stickers as well.
Yeah.
All you got to do to get a free t-shirt and some stickers is just go review the show over on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever.
Honestly, do it on Podchaser.
Podchaser is so fun.
Well, they're doing the giveaway still, right?
Yeah, there's some amazing stuff going on at Podchaser.
Well, no, are they still doing the...
I think it might be ending by the time this is released.
Oh, okay. Then never mind. It can be anywhere.
But do it anywhere. But Podchaser's a good one.
Yeah.
Apple Podcast is a good one. And just anywhere that you can review the show. Maybe tweet at us. Let us know that you reviewed the show. All you got to do at the end is just put your shirt size. And then we will find a way to contact you for your mailing information. And we'll send you a T-shirt. We will send you a sticker until they all run out.
Yeah.
We got plenty of them.
Yeah, we want to give them away.
Yep.
We want everybody to have, and they're very comfortable. We're not just making that up.
Shirts.
Me and Kirk, when we were planning this, we're like, this can't be a janky shirt. We want somebody to have this and be like, I want to wear this because 1, it looks incredible, and 2, it feels great. And
it's not a Fruit of the Loom that we bought at Walmart in bulk.
I mean, no, we didn't buy them because we already had them. So there was shirts that we had laying around in our closet, and then we just screen printed them.
Yeah, you might see old stuff. No, that's not what happened. No, they're nice shirts. They really are.
Yeah, no, they are. We really tried to make something that was comfortable and decent.
Yep.
Because we've had enough crappy shirts. And then we went to Podcast Movement and we found out what good shirts were by getting 14 of them.
Yeah, I think we almost got our monies back just in T-shirts, and I wear mine almost every day. I wear one of those shirts every day before bed. Oh, dang. Did you realize that we're matching?
I did. And these are both from Podcast Movement. Anybody from not the live stream can't tell, but me and Kirk are matching. We're twinsies.
I didn't even realize it because we were both wearing our hoodies.
We both got these for free at Podcast Movement. Well, for free. We had to get paid to get in there.
I don't remember the guy's name, but every time we would go by that booth, he's like, you guys want a shirt? I got a new color today. I'm like, yeah.
See, that's the thing. I think I ended up with 6 Zencastr shirts. This is one of those things. But I use Zencastr all the time, so shout out.
Yeah, I love it. I love them. But okay, so that brings us to next week's recommendation. And I know that long-term listeners have been like, hey, wait, didn't you talk about this show like a year and a half ago?
We do that. We'll call it Revisited.
So it's somewhat of a revisited show. But I listened to this episode today. It came up as a recommendation on Spotify, and I just was letting things play. Just wanted to hear some new stuff. And this was such a good episode. It's Reply All, which is another one of those shows that I feel like you can't go wrong with any episode.
Yeah, really great show. I'm excited. What's this one?
It's called The Case of the Missing Hit. And let me give you a tiny description of this episode.
No, teaser only. If there's any spoilers,
it's just a teaser.
If there's any spoilers, you're getting slapped.
No spoilers. So there's a guy that has this song in his head that he remembers when he was younger, and he sings it to his wife, and his wife's like, that's not a real song. And he was a little bit of a neurotic guy. He's like, no, it is for sure. And their whole ride home and all night long, he's trying to find it on Google, and he can't find it anywhere. And he's like, am I crazy? Does this song actually exist? And so that's what this episode is about. And it's a crazy story in the rabbit holes that they have to go down to find out whether this song existed or not. And no spoilers. We'll find out whether or not it existed.
That's a good teaser
episode.
That's a good one. And with that, and remember,
there's always more to discover.
Thank you for listening to the Podcast Discovery Show. We have a few things we'd like to tell you. First, we would love to hear from you on Twitter at the PDS Official or in our Facebook group, the Podcast Discovery Club.
Secondly, leaving a rating and review on iTunes helps tremendously in giving us visibility and also visibility to the podcast that we recommend. You can also check out our Patreon page to get exclusive bloopers, old episode archives, and other exclusive content while supporting the show.
Finally, seriously, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you about what you love about podcasts. And thank you for being a part of all of the things that we do.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network.